We are live. Hello, LinkedIn. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Analytica and Tribal Impact LinkedIn Live. And we are here today joined by Sara Fernandez from Red Hat. Welcome, Sara. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Oh, that's all right. Now, we've known each other for quite a while, haven't we, Sara? So I'm not even going to remember how many years.
At least 5.
Is it?
That I can recall, yeah.
Right. So when you were at Hitachi, but you're at Red Hat now and you're the EMEA social media manager. So do you want to just give us a bit of an intro as to, what you do and where you live in? Because you're not in the UK, so.
Not anymore. But yeah, thank you, Tim and Sara, for inviting me. So as you probably know, Sara, I've been working in marketing for a long time. I was doing marketing when we met at Hitachi, but I always had that interest about social media and employee advocacy and how to leverage someone's personal brand online and and benefit both the person and the brand. So I started to do it like on top of my job, and I did that for a long time at Hitachi. And then I moved to Exasol, which is a data analytics company, and I was the global social media manager there. And finally, this year, it's been a lot of changes this year. So I moved back after 9 years in the UK. I moved back to Spain. I must say COVID and Brexit didn't work out for me. But yeah. And then I also joined Red Hat in April as an EMEA social media manager. And I'm very happy to be here because number one, the company and the culture itself, it's amazing. You never micromanage. You're pretty much, you have the autonomy to do, whatever you want to do, or try new ideas and try to make it like happen. And second, I get to work with a lot of different teams without different regions and different countries, which is what I love because I have this international background. So I do help and replicate the content for the region that I manage, but also do some bits and pieces on employee advocacy. We're going to start figuring out the program that I want to launch. And so far so good.
So I reckon we've got a couple of things that we can talk to you today about, haven't we? Which is the whole idea of being a social media manager and how you drive that program, but also your own journey as well, which I think would be quite interesting for folks. And hello, David. See you on the comments. Pop some comments in if anybody's watching live and ask some questions. So
and it doesn't matter if you're not called Sara or Sara, because I feel a complete imposter now that I don't have. And speaking to they should get just the sort of Sara and Sara show. But it's amazing to have you on here, and over the past kind of 12 years or so, when you've had this sort of different roles, I'd love to hear a bit more about your personal social media journey when you started feeling like you were building up an audience and driving engagement. How long that took you, and how your routine has changed over the years.
I think it also has to be with the fact that I'm a very social person myself. So one of the best or my favorite part of being a marketer is to interact with different people, to help people promote their content, to help them also promote themselves. So I was doing that, I think, since I started to work for IDC, and that was back in 2014. Because I remember, being able to take over the UK channels, figuring out ways of starting to promote whatever events or reports or whatever through social media instead of just sending emails, because I was realizing that the open rate wasn't great, and people tend, the mindset was shifting. So it wasn't about shouting out content. It was more about people were not stupid anymore. People were looking for content online. So you needed to be seen, and you needed to be in the place where people were looking for content. And that was social media. And since I've always been working for B2B, specifically lending, that was the platform that I took over and that I realized was going to be more successful. So started to realize and you know, to look at older technology companies that were doing at the time. And I realized that, for example, visuals work much better than any kind of link or press release or some, you know, boring stuff. Also giving a personalized message when people, and that's when the employee advocacy part comes in. So I realized that if an analyst or someone from a technical background was posting something from the brand, or not the brand, but something like that they felt, you know, beneficial for their own network, it was 100% more impactful and had more engagement than when the brand posted it as the brand. So I started to use all of those techniques, let's say that, for my marketing job. And it worked really well, especially with events, because, you know, as a marketer, you do a lot of events, you go to, and well, before you used to travel to places. And it was amazing how posting something live or pictures or videos, something like that, had, I don't know, maybe 50% more of engagement on that single post than just posting the regular corporate stuff. So that was my approach. And not only was I doing that, but I also started to train my colleagues on how could they do it themselves, which is the most important part, because at the end of the day, you don't want to treat people as 5 years old, right? You don't want to spoon feed them all the time. You want them to learn, and so they can leverage their own content and their own personal brand. So that was my journey so far. And then one day I realized, look, I want to do solely social media. This is what I'm passionate about. And I think I have enough knowledge now and skills to also help companies to do so. So that's when I decided to go as a social media manager.
That just reminded me actually of something Daniel Guzman once said, is that as social media managers, if you're trying to convince people in your company to do it, you've really got to do it yourself. And then I saw a post from Hootsuite on LinkedIn this week, which really made me laugh, because they said, here's to all those social media managers that don't get chance to manage their own social media accounts and too busy managing the brand. So how do you balance that then, Sara? Because you are a social media manager, so you're managing the brand channels, but you're also still very active as an individual, as a professional. So, you know, how do you make the time to do that?
Well, you're right. I don't have that much time now to manage my own personal channels, but I must reckon that since I dedicate myself to B2B, it's easier to differentiate, because obviously for the brand, it's pretty much LinkedIn, and for my professional brand, let's say that. But then I use as a personal channel, I use Facebook to communicate with friends and family. And then I use Instagram to show off my outfits, basically. And to look for...
I need to find you on Instagram.
Yeah, and also to follow people and trends that I like, and maybe copy any ideas that I see from some brands that I can then translate into B2B. But I do tend to differentiate a lot between these different channels. I know you're going to say, but Facebook is also beneficial, and we do things on Facebook, but the trends that we're seeing is that really for us, it's LinkedIn. What's working. And so, yeah, I don't do as much as I used to do, because honestly, I don't have the time. And honestly, since I'm thinking about ideas for the company the whole day, you know, after work, the last thing you want to do is sit on your table and start LinkedIn and all that. And especially since I live in Seville now, 40 degrees outside, you want to go outside and have a beer with your friends, basically.
I think that's going to be the key learning, how to run social media personally and professionally, and be able to have a drink, you know, with your friends, to get that work-life balance. I was fascinated to ask you about what you think the trends are with the different countries and the differing cultures, because you're a social media manager for EMEA, and you've obviously had a lot of experience in different countries within Europe. And whether people are listening in the US or people listening in APAC or EMEA, then obviously there's multiple different cultures to be able to communicate with. What are your thoughts on maybe the channels or the type of content that work in UK, France, Spain, Germany, Italy? What works best for that?
Well, I have a lot of experience, for example, in Northern EMEA, because I used to run that for Hitachi. So especially UK, Ireland, Netherlands, and the Nordics. That's a very easy market, let's say, because they all speak English. So the way we communicate to them, it's pretty much similar. They're also very direct messages, not that fluffy. So it worked really well. It works really well. But also in the UK, for example, I noticed that people like to see content that's more personal. Using emojis works a lot in the UK, for example, like yay and things like that. Like, for example, not in the US, but yes, in the UK. And for the rest of the markets, I would say it's very important to release content in their own language. Meaning, for example, if you are talking to Spain, it has to be in Spanish. You're talking to Israel, it has to be in Israeli, French, Italian, German. So that would be my key takeaway. You need to speak to on their own languages in those places, which, but fortunately I work with great colleagues all over those places. We have like local social media managers for DACH, for Iberia, for France, and they're able to translate and localize the content for their own countries. But yeah.
So, you said about language, and I'm also wondering, actually, and I know we're jumping from, your role and your brand and all that, but I was thinking about, you mentioned earlier about trying to get employees to be more active. And how do you convince employees to do that? Especially, you've worked in the tech sector, right? So technical experts typically have the potential to be your strongest influencers, but also are your busiest and probably not really interested in being famous or celebrity, is probably I'm quoting what I've heard from technical experts. So I'm quite interested how you've managed that in the past. How do you convince them to be on social?
Well, I think there are like two key paths where you can take them on board. One of them is training. And also you have to bear in mind, these people tend to be very analytical. So through training, but most importantly, showing them numbers. Here's what you can get if you do X, Y, Z. Here's how you do it. Like explaining to them very clearly, okay, step 1, 2, 3, and these are the results that you can get. So with metrics, that works really well with these analytical people. And the second thing that you need to have is the leadership support. Because if your leadership team is behind you and they do it, and they encourage their teams to do it because it's important, and you explain to them why is it important, not only for themselves as individuals, but also for the brand, then it's really essential that they're behind it. So those are the two key elements, I would say.
What about culturally as well? Do you find that experts or technical experts in the UK are more likely to say, yeah, I'm all in, I'll give that a go? And maybe, I don't know, I'm just picking on, say, Germany, maybe then they're a little less likely to do it. Do you see any cultural differences there as well?
Well, yes. I mean, obviously, there are like cultures that are more, let's say, confrontational or more restricted or more conservative than others. In the UK, yes, absolutely. You tell anyone, hey, do you want to talk about this? Yeah, I'll do that. In Germany, obviously, but we have very good people in Germany as well. We have very good people everywhere. So I think it's a matter of training them, because, and this is the main problem that I have encountered whenever I want to do something employee advocacy related, is that it's not that people don't want to do it, it's that people don't know how to do it, and they're afraid, and they're like, oh my God, I don't know what I'm going to say, I don't know how to do it, am I going to do something that, it's going to be detrimental for my brand or for the company? That's why, again, training, having a solid training for them, it's really important to get them on board.
So one thing that I wanted to ask, and I know Sara, the tribal impact study, that you did, was it 1 and a bit years ago now, in terms of one of the key findings was that people didn't see the business impact of their social media activities. So, Sara, asking you that question, do you feel like that's one of the biggest challenges that your exec leaders have, like be able to connect up their social account with business impact? Or do you think that they understand that and it's more how to do it, which is the key challenge?
I think through all of these years that I have been working in social media, I've seen a little shift, which is, before the leadership and people in general in the company, they felt like, yeah, social media is playing on the internet and posting stuff. And yeah, but I see people, that are really understanding what social media is and how can it help to amplify the message of the company. Now, this is something that I tell everyone, especially in B2B. No one's going to go on social media to buy from you, like number one. So you're not going to have like a link and people are going to click and going to buy. What you do through social media is building a relationship with your audience. And the reason is because when they think about purchasing any product or service, or they're looking for some solution, the first people that will come to their minds is your company, because you have been talking about these topics with that person or that audience before. So they will say, okay, these guys know what they're talking about. Let's ask, let's talk. So I don't think that they don't see the value of social media. It's harder to demonstrate, especially in organic social, how can it impact. But I think since we have like good platforms now for employee advocacy, like for example, we use Sprout Social and Bamboo. So you can have a lot of different metrics and reports that you can show on, for example, number of engagements, reach, value, etc., etc., etc. So they can have like numbers at least, and they can see, okay, this is growing, the audience is growing, the engagement, which is to me the most important metric, it's growing, and then they buy into it generally.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's about it's as much about the mindset, I think, and the skill set as it is about the tool set. And I think that's quite often a conversation we have on these, which is we often give our employees tool, but they don't know why they're using it or how. And that is a problem. And I don't go teaching them how when they don't actually know why, because then they mix up their content strategy. So totally with you on there. I have to do a little shout out. Hi, Eva. Thank you to Eva Westberg. Hayden. Yeah, haven't seen you for a while. Hope you're still on. And we also had a question here as well. It's quite a long one, but I'm just going to summarize it. What if your employees are engaged on social media, but maybe not so many different channels? How do you get them more comfortable with trying other channels? So I'm going to maybe put a bit of context around that. Maybe somebody's quite comfortable on LinkedIn, but what if they maybe want to move into, and we do a bit of work with Red Hat, and I know, some of the communities are quite strong for Red Hat audiences. So how do you move people into like Reddit and other communities? How do you encourage them to try new things and take risks and maybe start on Twitter, or do you not? Do they find their own way?
I'm not particularly a fan. I'm a fan of having more quality than quantity to start with. So you don't have to be everywhere to establish a good connection with your audience. You need to find where your audience is. For example, I've realized being in the tech industry that a lot of technical people are on Twitter because a lot of technical conversations happen there, but the business people are on LinkedIn. So it depends on your position and what you want to get. If you just want to be seen as the expert in this subject matter and you want to talk about coding and stuff like that, you probably will need to be on Twitter. But if you're more on the business enablement and stuff like that, you definitely need to be on LinkedIn, and you don't necessarily need to be on both of them. If someone is, really interested in learning more about another channel, I have trainings for Twitter as well. I mean, in this case, obviously, our main channels are Twitter and LinkedIn because we're B2B. So any of those, I can provide the training and I can provide like a consultation for that. I haven't seen a lot of impact on Instagram yet for these big tech companies. We will see how it goes and how it transitions. And I'm seeing a decline on Facebook. So
yeah. You're not mentioning TikTok.
Well, yeah, that's what I was going to ask.
No.
Well, we have to ask that because we're just getting a sense with all of our audience to see whether TikTok's featuring a lot. Is it personal usage, or have you not used it yet?
I personally think it's for B2C companies more than B2B. Yet we need to find our niche and we need to find our way. But again, I don't see the need because I've seen some companies doing it, and honestly, to have like 100 followers and doing it for the sake of it, I don't find the value there yet. It's like this, what is this platform that everybody was talking about on the pandemic, like this podcast thingy?
Oh yeah. Do you know, I can't even Clubhouse.
Nobody remembers
I
it.
forgot. Clubhouse. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So everybody, it was like so hyped, like, oh yeah, everybody's there. How many people are there now?
Yeah. Do you still go on Clubhouse, Tim? Does anybody watching still go on Clubhouse? Pop it in the comment.
It is interesting about that because we both were very, very active on Clubhouse, and I really enjoyed the chats, and there was all and our audience was there, and we were having a great time, I think, for about 6 months, and then I think the notifications became so much, and then a few people dropped off it, and we just continued speaking to the same people, but just on different channels. And actually, I flip between Clubhouse or Twitter or LinkedIn or wherever people are. And I don't really mind. Like, I'm just happy to speak to the same people. But I appreciate that when you're a global social media manager or social media across Europe, it's important to be able to train up the how-to tactics on different channels. And so it must be a nightmare when all the channels change, because I know that we went through a couple of months of lots of brands asking us, like, what should our Clubhouse strategy be? And then 3 months later, it was what should our TikTok strategy be? And I imagine it's quite hard to be able to scale this, Sara, as when with the changing social media landscapes.
Yeah, and I think it also depends again. And as David mentioned in the chat, TikTok, yes, it can be for talent attraction. But for example, in my particular position, there is a team for talent attraction, and they do their own stuff for EMEA and for global. So I think they're using some Instagram as well, which I don't, because my part is different. Mine is more on the business side, and obviously I need to be where the business decision makers are. But I don't see like the need of being everywhere.
No.
Whenever
you haven't got time.
No, well, you don't have time. Also, people get confused. I don't know. I know that new generations are coming, and this will change, obviously, as the decision makers are becoming younger and younger. You will need, or we will find new ways of communicating with them.
Yeah.
But yeah, at the moment, this is how I see it and how it's working.
I'll be interested to know. So, Dave, you've mentioned Clubhouse on the chat, whether you're still on Clubhouse. I can't remember going in there. I haven't been in there for a long time. So maybe we'll start again. I don't know. But TikTok, I am actually on TikTok now, Tim. So I have progressed. I have an account, but there's nothing up there. So I am actually just following different brands just to see what they're doing. I'm experimenting just to see.
I'm going to be with my in-laws from tomorrow, and they are on TikTok all the time. So it's usually I learn much more when I hang out with them. So I'll probably get more into it over the next week. I want to ask you, Sara, on a personal level, what are the sort of best sort of anecdotal stories that you can tell us about, what you got from social media? Like, what opportunities has you being on social media presented? I mean, you've got 5,000 people, in your direct audience. That you're obviously someone who's prevalent in there. What benefits has you having a social media presence given you?
Personally, I think it's it's very it has helped me, first of all, to create my personal brand, to strengthen my credibility as a professional. And I'm talking from a professional perspective here, because we are on LinkedIn. So I think it's about it. Also to attract opportunities and to increase my network and to learn. I often come to social media to learn from experts, from people that I follow, from people who are like most senior than myself. And so I can learn from them. How do they do this? How do they do that? About new trends, about new platforms, about new channels. So yeah, I think it's about increasing your own personal value, but also about learning. Especially in a field like social media, where it's constantly changing, constantly adding new features. You need to be on it to be good at it. Because if you pretend to just be there like one time, like, I don't know, once a week, no, you cannot do that. You need to be there every day and be aware and be a sponge, right? So yeah, I think both it brings value to my personal brand, and also gives me an opportunity to learn constantly.
I think that is a very under talked about feature of social media, especially when we're trying to, talk to employees and engage them and empower them to use social. They see it really, I think, traditionally as a broadcast platform, don't they? And they think, oh, you just want to use me as a channel to get your content out there. When actually, I think learning is a huge part. I mean, you've touched on it there, which is, you go there to connect with experts, to learn from the latest thinking, to broaden your knowledge, increase your value, further increase your credibility. And I don't, that bit's not talked about very much. And I think, it's an interesting one. And I think, therefore, do you see a connection between marketing and HR and L&D? Do you think that's getting a bit closer? Because that's something we've observed. There's a relationship there that's getting closer. So
yeah, definitely. I think talent attraction has become one of the major challenges lately for brands and for companies. We've seen like the big resignation recently, and it's true. Like,
yeah,
they're fighting for the best talent. So having a strong social media presence to not only show what you sell, your product, services, or whatever, but also your culture and what can you do for your employees, and what will your employees can expect from you if they work for your company. It's essential. And also marketing is obviously using social media, but not only for promoting, like traditionally promoting their events or these and that, but also they are promoting their own culture as well as a team. So here's how we celebrate that, or this is how we get together to do something, and it's amazing. And that's exactly the kind of content that people engage with the most. So personal content, content that talks to human beings, not just as a brand.
Yeah.
So would you, when you're talking to exec leaders about this, are they trying, when you're helping them become more social and helping them on their journey, are they constantly asking, how is this going to drive more revenue amongst our top accounts, or are they asking you about learning opportunities, how they can learn more? Do you see that changes in the individual perspective of the people that you're trying to help activate? Or do you see it that it's just a trend in terms of the departments coming together?
Well, the first thing that I tell them is, as I mentioned before, social media for B2B is not a platform. It's not social selling. It's not selling per se. And as Sara knows, it's about building trust and a relationship that can ultimately lead to business, yes, but it's not something that's going to happen overnight. So they need to understand that concept. So people won't go to social media or to LinkedIn to, hey, I want like 2 or 3 softwares or 2 or 3 whatever licenses. No, they go to your page to learn about your brand, but not only about what you sell, to learn about your culture, to learn about your CSR activities. because people have a lot of different aspects that they care about before they're going to buy from you. So not only the price and not only the service, it's also about, is this company really taking care of climate change or charities or doing things, or how do they take care of their employees? So they don't necessarily, that was a question that they used to ask like previously years ago, when people didn't really know what was social media, was more about followers and that's it. Now it's more about engagement, because in my opinion, that's when you see that your content is really being consumed, and that's when people are reading you and people are realizing about your values, what you can offer, etc., etc. So yeah.
So on that, you manage the brand channels in EMEA. So how are you creating more employee created content? How, because we often talk about putting employees in front of the logo. Therefore, I always think, certainly on platforms like LinkedIn and Twitter, the brand should be retweeting and resharing employee content, shining a spotlight on the people that are behind the logo, not necessarily the logo. So how, it was quite interesting because of the role that you're in. I'm wondering, and the connection that you have with employee advocacy. How, I mean, it's a bit early days for you, Red Hat, but have you got any plans and ideas, or what's she thinking?
So yes, they're very early days. It's in Red Hat, it's more complicated because, as you can imagine, I think we have like 1 million something followers on LinkedIn. We have loads of content from different regions. So, I mean, it's impossible. We cannot just like reshare people's like content, because that would be my solid job for the whole day. So we cannot do that.
And then it'd be hard to get a beer with some friends in the sun.
Exactly. So so what we do is we select, or I select the content for my region. I do geo-target it, so only people in my markets can see it. And in terms of social media employee advocacy, I don't think there has been a solid plan yet at Red Hat, and that's when I want to really make a difference. And I think the first step for me is I'm going to have a call with the leadership team in EMEA, because we want to lead the process here, and I want them to understand the process, and I want them to support me. Some of them are very like eager to do it, so I think it's going to work. And my plan is to start with maybe the pioneers in this team, like choose maybe 3 or 4 people that are very into, trying it, train them and do some consultancy with them, see about their, their profiles and the frequency and this and that, and start working with them. And then when we see like some results, we can show the results to the rest of the team. And also maybe we can get involved like the regional managers and start like that. But it has to start somewhere, because this is I don't know how many people are in the company, maybe 30,000. As you can imagine, I can be training 30,000 people, but it needs to start like in small groups, I think, first.
Yeah.
And when we see, the results, then we can extend that and we can show that as a proof that, okay, this is what you can get if you do this. And, the famous coffee routine, 5 minutes a day or 10 minutes a day. And I'm going to try that.
I've got some coffee mats in here, actually, up there. In fact, I'm going to get one only because I need to switch the light back on. It's a bit dark in here.
Okay.
It worked.
It came on without you even walking over.
But I knew that was going to happen on this. I knew the light was going to go off. I need to move the desk a bit further that way. Still trying to get into this office. So
what do you, Sara? What do you think are the biggest challenges to scale for employee advocacy currently?
I think again, I think people just don't know what it is and don't know how to do it, and that is the main problem here. Because as Sara said, you're gonna give people a platform without explaining to them why are we having this platform, how can we leverage this, and the most of the benefit that we can get from it. You cannot just say, okay, here's a platform and this is how it works, go. So I think training is essential. Having sessions with them, teaching them not only about the platform, but about, this is how you build your personal brand on LinkedIn. This is how you have to do it. And also tell them the do's and don'ts, because, some people tend to share everything, which is not what we want. Some people don't really personalize the message, and that also it's not a good practice for me, because they all sound the same and look the same. So it's a matter of consistency with training, consistency with teams, testing, because obviously not everybody's going to be social, and that's okay. But you need to lead with examples, and you have to have like a few pioneers and a few team leaders within different teams. But yeah, you can expect people to do things that they don't know how to do it.
No, I think that's the biggest mistake, actually. Start small, gain traction, get evidence, take it back, start scaling. When you said what's the challenges with scaling, I thought you were going to say me. I can't scale, Sara. Not enough of me. It's not enough time.
Yeah. No, but I think this is really interesting, because social media has been around for so long now, and we all feel like it's intrinsic into the value that everyone delivers, but yet we're still starting at the bottom with a lot of people as starting at zero.
Yeah.
And so therefore it's almost a conundrum of, okay, we know that training and education is key, but is it the quality of the training or the mediums or how we train which are holding us back? Because ultimately we've got to be the solution to these challenges. I mean, in 10 years time, we probably won't be having a conversation saying execs don't get social media. But
and that's why I think, Tim, it's I'm seeing more and more professionals on employee advocacy. So employee advocacy professionals, so positions solely for employee advocacy, because a lot of companies, and especially in the tech industry, they're realizing the power of it. So before, it was the marketing person doing the social media, the employee advocacy, the everything. And now I'm seeing very different roles for different things. And that's when you can really escalate and you can really roll up a good program, because yes, it's true. I mean, it's completely different to just say, send a video to someone and say, here's a video of the training, and you do it yourself and good luck. But if you have someone like myself or any other professional, and you go and you are with the people, you are a human being, they can ask you questions, they can go back to you, and you can follow up with them, and they see that there's someone behind it that can understand their pain points, and you can help them really. The human value in this type of things, it's really important.
And there's a part of that which I think is embedding behavior change, and it's more than a tool, and it's more than it's changing mindsets, and it's a blended approach. And we talk a lot about self-service training, coaching, one-to-one support, a community that you can build where you can ask each other questions. It's all of that. And it's not just it's not 1 hour webinar and then job done. Exactly. Everybody's converted. It does not, change management does not happen like that. It's a program. And
exactly, couldn't agree more. And it's also not having a massive training center with all the resources, because there's no shortage of training with a lot of these companies.
Yeah, absolutely. And after the pandemic, especially, people don't really want to see another video, the training webinars and stuff like that, because we've had thousands of it. And I'm the first one. If someone tells me, oh, you need to learn something like this video, and I say, no way, I'm not.
No.
So yeah, I rather have someone who's an expert explaining to me, okay, this is how you do it, and if you have any question, you can ask me and stuff like that, because that's how it's all. Preferably face-to-face would be much better, because you know that kind of flavor, it's different when you are face-to-face. But yeah, we will see what happens with the traveling and
So
stuff
are
like
you? Yeah, I was going to ask about that because, with working with brand, can think of 4 to 10 years ago, there would be people who would run a program that would fly to every single country
that.
and mobilize the troops and, sit in Japan, sit in Germany, sit in the UK, sit in the US and understand the nuances, go out for dinner, really understand the problems and be able to sort of, communicate that change management and embedded behaviors.
Hmm.
Do you feel like that's coming back now? Do you feel like you will travel to 3 or 4
I don't
countries this
know.
year?
We need to make a plan first. We need to see how it goes. And I think, as we see the need and we roll out the program, we will see. But that would be the ideal outcome, because it's I can tell you, I've done it like face to face and I've done it like remotely, and it's not the same. But people buy more into it if you're like with them, doing stuff on site with them, showing them, no, you need to change these and you need to do that and stuff like that. And but we will see how it goes. Hopefully.
Yeah, it's a completely different dynamic.
Yeah.
We're starting to do a lot more face to face now, actually traveling to places, and it is a different dynamic. But I think those high cost, high expense investments need to be for your most advanced users that potentially,
Yes.
you can scale basic training to the masses, but you can do your more high touch, high cost training to your experts potentially,
Yes.
to shift them and elevate them a little bit. So I'm curious, Sara, and I'm going to ask you this question from a two-sided approach. What would you say to someone, both in your role, who is about to launch an advocacy program, because you've done this sort of thing before in previous companies? What would you say to them to get started? But also, what would you say to somebody who wanted to build their personal brand, which you've also been successful at? What would you say to them to get started? So I'm thinking both role and your professional brand.
I would pretty much talk to them, and will tell them about my personal experience on social media, specifically on LinkedIn, how I got to, increase my value, increase my credibility, trust, being seen as an expert in my area, which is at the end of the day what you want to be recognized for. Also, obviously, if you're in sales, I mean, it's a no-brainer. I mean, what are you doing if you're not on social media, man? Like, because everybody's looking for information way before they start to think about buying something on social. So I think I learned it in one of your trainings, the fact that, the silent buyer, right? The people are looking at different information, different content, and then they will decide, once they made up their mind, then they will go and have that conversation with, the salesperson or whatever. But first you need to build that trust. Yeah. So it will depend on the position of that person. If that person, for example, is in HR or recruiter, yes, you need to be there as well, because you need to show the culture. You need to also attract the best talent. You need to be seen as a very forward-thinking company, and you need to be where your target audience is, right? And that means, again, if you are, for example, recruiting for very young people or graduates and stuff like that, maybe you should thinking about, having an Instagram or a TikTok, because a lot of them are there. If you're recruiting for more senior people, obviously you need to be on LinkedIn. But yeah, it depends on your position, but definitely there are benefits for everyone.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think that's great.
And I just had one last question for me. With your personal routine, when do you go on to how do you approach social media personally? Some people say, I'm going to look at it 3 times a day and I'm going to post up around these 4 hashtags and this is my very focused strategy. And other people just clock onto social media like when they wake up and every single second of the day when they get some time. Like, how do you approach your personal social media usage?
Well, as you can imagine, I'm the whole day on social media, but because I work on that. But yeah, for my personal one, it's I am like any other person, which is morning, like before getting to bed. That's a good time for posting. Remember, guys, before you start working, because a lot of people are checking on social media. Also, I tend to do it like before I start working and after I work, for my personal stuff. For work, I take a look like, I don't know, a lot of times.
But personally, it would be that 8 to 9 in the morning, and then
Yes.
you know 5 to 6 p.m.
Yeah, because I also need to detox. You kind of be like, you know, the whole day, like, no, it's also healthy, and especially for people who are not very savvy, I would say, if they just spend maybe 10 minutes in the morning, 5 minutes in the evening or something like that, they will see, maybe doing some comments, like shares, stuff like that. You don't need a lot of time. You need to be there 24/7.
But I suppose that you mean your Facebook activity or your personal stuff, don't you? Rather than your personal account on LinkedIn and Twitter, because you
Well,
do
yes,
that during the
my
day, don't you?
personal accounts, those are professional accounts. Let's say I consider LinkedIn both personal and professional because, you know, obviously I'm not going to talk about politics or anything else like that on LinkedIn. I do that on Facebook, but because Facebook is private and I'm only connected to people I know. So yeah, and yes, even for Facebook and Instagram and stuff like that, I do it in the evening, like probably before dinner or something like that, or after dinner when I'm more relaxed, and you know. But those are different channels. Like I would never go to LinkedIn. I never go to LinkedIn, for example, in the evening, like at 9.
No, or a Saturday.
No.
Lots of people talk about posting on Saturdays, don't they?
I've done it. It depends
Yeah.
on what you do it for. Like I remember at Exosol, we did the company was the sponsor for the German national team, and so there were like some matches on a Saturday, and we posted about statistics and animations and stuff like that, and that worked really well.
Okay.
But if it's business stuff, it doesn't
Not
really
fly.
that much engagement.
I think you touched on a topic there, actually, which I think is for another time, but digitally disconnecting. I remember talking to Lee Welch at Microsoft about this. It's a very passionate topic for him, which is especially for social media managers who are always on all the time. You've got to be watching for crisis, watching for things that are bubbling up, watching for, you know, things that shouldn't be on there. And how does a social media manager disconnect? I'm feeling like that could be a blog post or something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And getting the tips from the community. I think
because no, I think that's really important because if I look at my own channels, it's really the personal channels on business and the personal channels to contribute to the company. But you've got your personal, and then you've got your personal professional, then you've got your business professional, and you're meant to be manning the social media channels for crisis. So you've got probably 3 to 4 times what I would be thinking about. And that's quite a lot, and I hadn't necessarily appreciated that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you need to like this stuff to work in it, because but we are all different, and I say this to a lot of people, like, how can you do that? Well, for example, I am terrible at admin. I hate admin. Like I've always done it. Like whenever I had to raise a PO in any company, it was a nightmare for me because I'm so bad at it. But there are some other people in the team that loves it. A lot of people are very organized and they love stuff like that. So we are all different. And they told me I hate social media. That's okay. I mean, we don't have to be like exactly the same. That's why there are teams, and some people are good at some things and some people are good at other things. So yeah, it is what it is.
It's been wonderful. Thank you, Sara. Sara.
Thank you.
Sara. I'm even getting confused myself. Oh, for goodness sake. Well, I think we'll wrap it up there. So thank you so much, Sara, for coming. I mean, honestly, it's always a pleasure to talk to you, and I'm really pleased he's settling in at Red Hat. It's brilliant. So, but anybody who's watching this on recording, you can always find this on the resources pages of Analytica and Tribal Impact. So you can watch the recording back. If you missed the first part, you can always watch it back and get some tips. So, but thanks for everyone who's watching and all the comments that we got all about TikTok and B2B and talent attraction and Clubhouse. That one came up again. So thank you for all of that. And to you, Sara. So
thank you so much, guys. And always a pleasure.
Thank you, Sara.
Take good care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.